I'm going to show you how stats work in Elden Ring. There are a ton of different stats that you may have noticed, and I'm going to go through each one of them so you know what they do. So you're going to open the menu, you're going to go status. There's at the top left, we're going to start top left. There's level, runes held, runes needed. This is pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to take long on it. Level is what level you currently are from spending your runes. Runes are obtained from killing enemies. How many you're holding right now is runes held. I have 63,000 on me right now. If I die, they'll drop on the ground. Runes needed is the amount you need to the next level. You can't spend these in little bits. You have to have enough for an entire level, or you can't spend at all. In my case, I need 11,379. All right, attribute points. This might be one of the reasons you're here, or the other stats on the right, which we'll get to in a second. So, Vigor. This is something, when you level it up, it'll increase your HP. As for Mind, it will increase your FP, which is like mana, magic power. It's what you use to cast spells and use special abilities. And we'll go over all these stats in more details once I go over through this generalizing it, okay? Endurance, this will increase your stamina, which is the green bar at the top left, which is used when you swing your weapon or roll, or I think blocking does it too. And getting more stamina makes so you can do more of that. If you have a two-handed weapon, that's when you'll probably really feel running out of stamina, and you may want to get more endurance. But the other big reason to get endurance is it changes equip load, the stat in the middle, equip load. It'll increase the maximum, which is the number on the right, which mine is 52.9 right now. And if that's higher, it'll allow you to have more armor on and heavier weapons without getting encumbered. Which, really quick detour, you see right now I'm medium load in the middle. That's because I have too much weight on, and it brings me up to medium. If I put more on, I'll get to a heavy load. Eventually, I'll get over-encumbered and can barely move. So what kind of... It's kind of a balance between putting on certain gear and getting stats from it versus being slow and not being able to have your fast dodge rolls and things. So it's always a balancing act. Anyway, strength. Strength is going to allow you to equip certain weapons that have strength requirements. You can equip them without the strength requirements, but they won't work correctly. They won't do good damage. So strength is required for that. It also increases how much damage you do with any weapon that scales off of strength. And Dex is kind of the same thing, but with some perks. Dex will also increase damage that weapons do if they scale off of Dex. Every weapon scales off of one of these stats. And Dex also will make it so you cast spells faster. It'll decrease the amount of fall damage that you take, and it'll make it harder to get knocked off your horse. As for intelligence, it's all about magic. Intelligence will just make it so spells do more damage if they scale off of intelligence, and intelligence is required to cast certain spells at their effective level or use them at all. I can't remember exactly, but it's either one or the other. So you'll need intelligence to cast spells, you'll need high intelligence to use certain spells. That's what intelligence is for. Faith, this is healing. Faith basically just allows you to use certain healing items that have requirements, or healing spells that have certain requirements, and the higher your faith, the more healing those will do with the same amount of FP. As for Arcane, the main thing this is going to do is it's going to increase your discovery. There are certain things it's like certain weapons that want you to have a certain level of Arcane to use them to the fullest, so it'll also be used for that, unlike unlocking the potential of certain weapons. But the number one thing it's for is increasing discovery, which is a stat that will increase your luck. It'll make it so you're more likely to find items off of corpses when enemies die. So it's basically just an RNG. It's basically luck from other games, which is a fun stat to have, but end game it kind of sucks, because then if you eventually get the item, well then why'd you have all that discovery? What a waste of stats kind of thing. Also, getting levels is basically irreversible. You'll have to make a new character, to the best of my knowledge, if you use all your levels and put them however you're going to put them. Also, as you level, the stats on the right, the defenses, physical defenses and magic defenses, as well as the resistances will go up as you level up any of your attribute points. Just levels will increase those, generally speaking. Now, as for this middle row, we have the HP, the FP, the stamina, equip load, poise discovery, memory slots. HP, pretty straightforward. How many points you can take of damage before you die. FP, magic points. Stamina, how much you can swing and dodge before you run up, before you can't move anymore, can't do anything. Equip load, we already went over that. It's how much gear you can put on before getting heavy and not being able to roll correctly. Poise. Here's one we haven't gone over yet. Poise. Poise is your ability to not get broken when guarding. So if your poise is really low, you'll just take one or two swings and it'll burn all your stamina and it'll break your poise, and then you'll be staggered and you'll be totally screwed. Poise goes up from equipping armor. Armor and maybe weapons too. I know armor though. Armor will increase your poise. That's the only way to increase your poise. So you see right now my poise is 12. If I back out and I take off this and I go back to it, now my poise is 0. I could do the same thing of putting on just some gloves And now I go back in. My poise is now 4. So you can see where equipment is what affects poise. And that's only really about guarding. Also, equipment's going to affect your damage negation and resistances, as you can see right here with the pieces. You can see what each piece does. Physical, magic, how much it's going to give you versus how much it weighs. It's always a balancing act between the weight of the equipment and how many stats it'll actually give you. So anyway, back to the status. Discovery, we already went over, but now we have memory slots. What are memory slots? Well, memory slots are how many spells you can have equipped at a time. Otherwise, you have to go back to the Grace in order to swap them out with other spells. This is governed by intelligence. As you get intelligence up, at certain brackets, it'll unlock new memory slots. I don't have the exact brackets, like say 14 intelligence, you'll get a third one, and 20, you'll get a fourth one, or, you know, something like that. So that's what memory slots are, that's how that works. Now on the right, this one you might be really confused about. We have attack power, and it has right armament 1, 2, 3, and left armament 1, 2, 3. It has different values for all of them. What does that mean? Well, what that means is what weapon you have in which slot. So, if I go to my equipment, I have 3 slots for weapons on my right hand. These are my right hand ones at the top. These are my left hand ones at the bottom. If I put on a weapon on the, let's put on the third, this third slot. So there's first slot, second slot, third slot. If I go to this third slot and I throw on this axe, now if I go to my status, you'll see my left armament number 3 has an attack power of 151. So that's all that is. It's literally just which of those slots, like how much attack power each weapon has in each slot. So it's just like an overview of the other tab, basically. So that's all that is. Defense and damage negation. Now this is where it gets a little complicated. So defense is how much defense I already have from my stats. You'll get more defense as you level up, the left ones. And the right one is damage negation, which is governed by the gear I have equipped. So you see on the right, I have 11.9 and 8.8 and all that. If I take off this armor and come back, now they're all 0, except for lightning and fire, which I'm not sure if that's governed by the torch. Is that what that is? No, it's not the torch. I actually don't know why I have 10 and whatever base, but I guess that's just what it is base, maybe. I'm not entirely sure on that, but you get the point of armor is how you govern those. So if I throw on a bunch of armor, now I come back in. Now I'm up to 15 at 27 fire and all that stuff. So that's what that is. It's just defense from innate defense and damage negation. There's probably some exact formula of how they factor in, and one's probably different than the other. I don't have that information. That information is not really out for Elden Ring, but you could probably look up for Dark Souls 3, and it'd probably be identical. Stats page looks pretty much identical from Dark Souls 3. As for resistance, resistance is going to affect your immunity to things like poison and bleed and death and all these, like, you'll know because you'll go through something, you'll get hit by something, and you'll see a bar appear at the bottom that'll be some color, and when it fills, something bad happens. Either you die instantly, or the bar will fill all the way, it'll say you're poisoned, and then the bar will slowly empty, and you'll just take poison damage over time, right? You'll get resistances to those from immunity, robustness, focus, and vitality. The left one is your current stats, and I think the right one is from equipment. If I take all that off, yeah, the right one's from equipment, left one's from your innate stats. And actually looks like the left one, so resistance is complicated. So there's probably some formula about left versus right, but both of them are governed by your armor for the case of resistances. So you'll see that now they went down. So yeah, those will affect those though. So it's always just about armor. Regardless of the formula, it's the same concept. You're just going to put armor on and it's going to affect it. Now here's a trick for you. If you ever forget this, you can just press whatever button at the bottom. You'll see all the keys. There's one that's called help. You press that one and go to explanation, and then you go over these and it'll basically explain what I just told you. So if you ever forget and you want it to be re-explained to you, just go through these. And the reason I'm popping this up now is take a look at these ones. So immunity is resistance to poison and rot. Okay, and then robustness is blood loss and frostbite. Focus is resistance to sleep and bouts of madness. And vitality is resistance to death. These ones are all straightforward, as you can imagine. Physical against just standard attacks versus strike versus slash pierce. Then we got magic in general, and then specifically fire, lightning, and holy resistance. And yeah, those are the stats. And one thing you need to know about equipment, when you look at any weapon, you'll see at the bottom it has attribute scaling and it has passive effects as well as attributes required. So what these are going to do is the attribute scaling. It has strength, int, arc, dex, faith. Okay, whatever that is what stat is going to scale off. In the case of this one, it's scaling. It's off of strength and only strength. So if I level up my strength, it will do more damage. As I level up my strength, you'll see the plus damage go up for the attack power as my strength goes up. Also, the letter determines how well it scales off of strength. It's just like letter grades in school. There's A, B, C, D, E, and F. Well, I don't know if they even have F, but C is okay. B would be better, and A would be the absolute best. If it has A attribute scaling, then that means it gets a ton of damage based off your strength. And if it has E or whatever, D, I think D might be the lowest actually. If it has the lower one, then it's going to be, you get less damage per point of strength. Same thing for Dex, Faith, Int, or Arcane. The weapon will tell you what it scales off of. And some things like smithing it and upgrading it so it's +1, +2, +3, stuff like that will change its attribute scaling. And also Ashes of War will change its scaling, which if you want to know how Ashes of War work, check out the description of this video for links to all sorts of helpful Elden Ring stuff. It'll be in there somewhere. As for attributes required, you don't need these attributes to equip it, but you'll need them in order to have it actually do damage. Most of the time, if you equip it without the required attributes, it'll do like less damage than a level 1 one-handed club. I mean, it'll do like nothing basically. So this case, it needs 22 strength, and as soon as I hit 22 strength, it'll suddenly do the amount of damage it's supposed to do. Also, you'll see it has passive effects. This one has nothing. Although I do have one to show you, like this. Causes blood loss buildup. So just like how you can get those things like poison and stuff like that, you can also give those to enemies. The other thing you need to know about is guarded damage negation. It affects how much damage you negate while guarding with this weapon or with a shield. Shields are what you're meant to block with, but you can block with normal weapons without a shield. And in order to block, you have to change to two-handed weapons, which for an Xbox controller is hold Y and press left and right bumper, which PlayStation controller might be hold triangle and press L1 and R2. I mean L1 and R1, I mean. Not sure. But once you get to this, then you'll just hold LB on Xbox. And I'm not sure PlayStation would be L1. And that's normally the button you would press to use your left-handed thing. Whatever that is. In my case, I have a torch in my hand, so I can spam the torch. So that is how you block, and those stats will determine what blocking does for you with this weapon. Now, when you go to a Site of Grace, you can level up. You'll unlock this leveling up, by the way. I don't know, you might be watching this at level 1, actually, so I should probably tell you how to unlock leveling up. If you're still level 1, you don't know how to level up, go to Gatefront. It's right here on the map. This is where you start. This is where you come out of that building at the very beginning. Just follow these paths. Go to this Site of Grace right off the bat. And you'll be able to, it'll do some stuff, and then you'll be able to level up, okay? There'll be like a cutscene and stuff. So anyway, but once you have leveling up, you're going to go into the Site of Grace whenever you want to level up, and you can spend any runes that you are currently holding. And in here, you can see what happens when you level up. In the case of Vigor, you can see my HP. If I go up this many levels, I'll go from 738 HP to 910, and I'll gain all those defenses. But you can see about the defenses, it doesn't matter what I level up. They all will increase those defenses to some degree, no matter what I spend it in. It's basically just levels that increase it, although different ones will increase it by slightly different amounts, but it's generally just levels will increase those as far as your base. So anyway, Vigor increases HP by that amount. It has, if it's like Dark Souls 3, it's going to have fall off around 1,000. It's going to start giving less and less and less to discourage people from just going all into Vigor. And then mine's going to increase FP, same thing. It'll have fall off eventually, so, you know, doing too much is kind of a waste after a certain point. Endurance, again, stamina and max equipment load. I'm pretty sure this one has diminishing returns as well, unfortunately. And then strength will increase the damage with your weapons, but it's harder to see that one from this screen. Same thing for Dex. Intelligence, you won't be able to get to see much of it. Faith, you won't be able to see much of what it does in here. And then Arcane, you'll be able to see that Discovery. It's just 1 point of Discovery per point of Arcane. That's all you get. And that is everything with these stats. So that is how all those stats work. That is how to change them. Again, equipment. You can change your equipment. You can even put on talismans that will affect things more behind the scenes sometimes. I only have one right now, but there's talismans for all sorts of stuff out in the game that'll do stuff that'll like decrease damage taken when X, Y, and Z situation, or this and that. There's so many complicated talisman effects you can put on to change things that won't change the raw numbers most of the time. Some of them will, but sometimes it'll just change things behind the scenes about damage taken and stuff like that. But other than that, yep, just armor. You can see weight, negation, resistance, and you just look at each piece of armor and decide, is it worth the wait to get those stats? And that's how you do it. That, or just if you think it looks cool, really, honestly. So those are stats. That's how all these stats work in this game. Hopefully this helped you out. I'm just trying to make a guide for beginners. I know there's probably people out there who have played Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 for 1,000 hours each, and maybe this guide is not what you were looking for. But at the same time, if you're in that situation, I'm not sure what you were looking for because you probably already know everything. So this guide was meant for people who are new to the series and want to know what each of these stats do, what they affect, what it all means. That was my goal, more of a general guide for a newer player. So hopefully this helped you out. Hopefully this guide helped you out. Hopefully now you have a better understanding of how all the stats work in Elden Ring.